Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I went quiet all of a sudden here. Welcome to your city hall. I just would like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, November 25th to order. Territorial acknowledgement. Before I start, we respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people of the Kasepsum and Songhees nations who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial. Item 2 is the approval of the agenda. Before we start there, item 6.1 has been removed from the agenda as the proponent is not available this evening to speak about it. That was on the fireworks. And items 7.4 and 7.5 have been, it's requested that they be moved onto off the consent agenda, and they will become items 8.5 and 8.6. On that note, may I have a mover and seconder to approve the amended agenda? Thank you, Mr. Grove and Councillor Olson. Oh, okay, sure. Councillor Jordison.
I'm just not seeing on the near-term or long-term agenda the age-friendly community plan update or the proposed council policy restrictions on gifts, favors, and discounts. It seems to be missing.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry.
We will have those added to the.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Earl. Not seeing any other discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none. The agenda is approved. Okay, Mayor's message. I just have 3 messages. Just above the entrance to City Hall, you may notice the red dress. We've erected a metal red dress to honor the memories of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2 spirit peoples across Canada. This symbol is based on the artwork of Métis artist Jamie Black, who inspired the red dress movement. This is part of our city's reconciliation process with the Indigenous people. So I don't know if you've noticed it. It's a beautiful emblem. Thank you. The second item I have is I just would like to welcome everybody and to join us at the Colwood Christmas Light Up on Thursday, December 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. This is a free family event. We're getting hot dogs again from Red Barn Market and treats from Royal Bay Bakery. They're going to be served up and lots of hot chocolate for everyone to keep everyone warm. And we have choirs from all 5 elementary schools from Colwood, and they'll be providing the entertainment for the evening. If you've never attended, they're a great event. And I understand our CAO, Mr. Earl, has connections with a jolly guest from the North Pole who will be arriving on a fire truck. And lastly, speaking of trucks, don't miss the annual Island Equipment Operators Association Parade, Truck Parade, and Food Drive, which is rolling through Colwood again this year. It's going to end up at the Commons in Royal Bay. It's on December 7th, starting at 6:30 in the Royal Bay Commons with music, fun, and treats. While you're there, don't miss the magical light tunnels on the bridges throughout Meadow Park. I have received, it was interesting this afternoon, I received about 26 emails from the public. Someone posted on Facebook that write to the mayor because he'll make the route of the fire truck parade move. So last year, if you remember, those that attended, it went down Veterans Memorial, it turned on to Soup Road, then down Machosen Road, down into Royal Bay. And this year they have moved the route. Now, I just want to make it clear to everyone in the public that this is something that we don't control. This is, it is completely organized by the IEOA, and we have no say in it. The only thing I did last year is I made sure it ended up here in Colwood. So that for the first time ever, it ended up in Colwood. And so I'm getting criticized now for changing it, and I have no control over it. At one time, the truck parade went on, it turned off the Island Highway onto Goldstream and right into Langford. And that's that was the only part of it we got to see here in Colwood. Now, the reason behind it, it was changed by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The RCMP said last year it was a danger, it was a hazard going down a chosen road. And they almost had a few incidents there. So they wanted to avoid it this year. So unfortunately, it is going down VMP, down Latoria into the Commons. So you get to see it in the Commons, and what I say, come on down and join us in the Commons, because there's music there and you get a front row seat. So it's something that unfortunately we do not control. We just, I just pled with everybody to make sure it ended here in Colwood last year. So it will hopefully be in the future, as far as we can see, that it will terminate here in Colwood. So sorry about that, folks. I don't control it. I can only plead now with the RCMP, and that's the only thing I can do. But I don't think I'm going to get much luck on that. Okay, on that note, again, I'm really grateful to all the local businesses, again, who've, and parade organizers and event sponsors, Gablecraft and Quality Foods, for their unwavering support this year, again, for the truck parade. And the whole big portion of this is not just the truck parade, but it is the food bank drive. So really encourage everybody to help out with that. Moving on the agenda, item 4, adoption and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the council minutes from October 28th and receipt of the committee minutes as published in the agenda. Okay, Councillor Jensen and okay, Councillor Grove. Any discussion? Councillor Jordison.
I just want to let the public know, and for it to be on record, that excuse me, the emergency planning committee minutes are there and it shows me as regrets. And I just want to explain to the public that in order for me to attend as the alternate, I need to be told to attend as the alternate. So the person that is the representative for that committee needs to let me know that I need to attend, and that hasn't been happening. So there's been no representation on that committee for quite some time. And I just want you to know that it's not me purposely not attending. Thank you.
Thank you, duly noted. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, we open up to, yes. Oh, Councillor Day.
Sorry, I think the minutes should be amended to reflect the member that was actually missing is Councillor Johnson.
Okay, duly noted. Public participation. We've had, there were 2 written submissions that are attached to the agenda that were received before the agenda publication, and 2 written submissions received after publication of the agenda, which will be appended to the agenda tomorrow. No members of the public have registered to speak virtually. And now I'll open up the floor at this point in time to give members an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. You'll have 2 minutes, and you'll see the lighting system. For those that are new, there's a green light means that you can talk. The yellow light means you have 30 seconds, and the red light means you have to stop. That's just in fairness so that everyone can speak here. And you can also wait until the item actually comes up on the agenda to speak to it. But please, if you are going to wait, then you have to wait throughout the meeting until that agenda item does come up. And if anyone wants to speak later on the agenda items, if you could just show your hands. Otherwise, I'll assume you're speaking now. Okay, I'll assume everyone's speaking now. So at this point in time, I'll open up the floor. Please. No? Going once, going twice. Okay, gone. Okay, we'll move on. So as I said, item 6 has been removed. We'll go to item 7, which is the consent agenda. And as I indicated earlier, 7.4 and 7.5 have been removed. And can I get a I should point out again, any councillor may wish to remove any item off the consent agenda. And it doesn't require a seconder. Seeing none, then I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the adoption of the consent agenda. Okay, thank you very much, Council Olson and Council Ward. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll move on. Item 8, which is new business. And I'll ask Matt Blakely to introduce the Quarry Park expansion concept plan. Considerations for dog off-leash and multi-sport courts. Matt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm really excited to bring forward the Quarry Park expansion concept plan for your consideration. So this plan outlines the types and locations of park amenities for future design and construction phases, aiming to enhance both active and passive recreation within Quarry Park. The plan includes sports and recreation facilities, considers a potential community center, and integrates recreation areas with a proposed elementary school to promote a cohesive and dynamic neighborhood. The purpose of the staff report before you today is to provide additional information following the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee's recommendation from the October 7th, 2024 meeting. The committee recommended adding an off-leash dog park and multi-use sports courts to the expansion plan, diverging from the original staff recommendation. So following this meeting, staff consulted with the project's landscape architects from Lanark Consultants. The objective was to explore options, better understand the design and cost considerations associated with adding these amenities within Royal Bay, with a focus on considerations for Quarry Park. So Lanark's memo, which is appended to the staff report, presents information on the planning context, design considerations, cost estimates, and also highlights potential conflicts related to placing these amenities within the Quarry Park expansion plan area. So consequently, staff encourage council to consider the provided staff recommendation as an alternative to the October 7th, 2024 Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee's recommendation. This approach adheres to the essence of what the committee's recommendation was, while ensuring that these amenities are located in places that optimize their success and benefit the entire Royal Bay community. So to discuss the finer details of this project and the memo from Lanark, I'd like to introduce Vanessa Walton, landscape architect and associate with Lanark. Vanessa brings a wealth of experience and expertise in parks planning and design and has worked closely with staff throughout the development of the Quarry Park expansion concept plan. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
Thanks very much, Matt. Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you, Matt, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be joining you to share some information about the Quarry Park expansion concept plan. So I'll start my presentation with an overview of the planning context, and then I'll provide some information about what we heard during the public engagement phase, outcomes of that engagement phase, and an overview of the draft plan, and then I'll touch on final steps. So I'll start with an overview of the planning context, including key related documents and considerations that framed the draft concept plan development. You've probably seen this diagram before, but just as a refresher, since there are multiple related planning processes at play here, a previous and separate planning process took place for phase 1, which was approved by council in 2023. So that's for the gray area on that diagram. And as you know, phase 1 is already under construction. In September 2023, the city initiated the Quarry Park expansion concept plan process for phase 2 and the expansion area. So that expansion area would add 1.93 hectares to the existing park area of 4.53, resulting in a total park area of 6.5-ish hectares or 16 acres. And then concurrently, of course, there's also planning underway for the elementary school site adjacent and opportunities for shared recreational use of the school facilities during non-school hours. We wanted to share this diagram just to show how the park expansion concept plan process related to both previous parallel and future steps within the park planning context for Colwood. So really just showing how this project is a direct outcome of the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and then is also framed by the Latoria South Parks Plan, and of course the Phase 1 concept plan. And then this is a concept plan or master plan level, so there will be future work needed in detailed design and implementation phases, of course. So touching on how the project process explored advancing really a number of recommendations from the PRMP, which was adopted in 2021. So the first of which being, of course, new community park. As part of the PRMP, there was a recommendation to explore a new community park specifically within the Royal Bay area. Second recommendation being C11, outdoor sports courts. So within the PRMP, there was recommendations to integrate 4 to 6 pickleball courts in Colwood at 2 different locations, 2 to 4 outdoor tennis courts, and upgrades to the Ocean View Park multi-sport court. Since the PRMP was adopted, we know that 2 multi-sport courts have been implemented at Dunsmuir Middle School, and then 6 new courts, of course, are slated for construction at the Juan Fuca Rec Center coming up. Still, there exists a deficit as it relates to court spaces, specifically in the Royal Bay area, and a need for courts that can be accessed by active transportation or walking from that neighborhood. For indoor facilities, really the main focus from the PRMP was to pursue addition of a new community center space, again with Royal Bay as a priority location, and then athletic fields. So what we heard during the PRMP process and continue to hear from the community today, from user groups and the community, is just there is a need and growing demand for more field spaces, and particularly field spaces that are co-located. The recommendations in 2021 were to explore integration of athletic fields as part of the new Upland Community Park. So really tying together C4 and C15 here. And then again, preferred location being either Royal Bay or the Allendale area. What we heard from the community during the PRMP was really a desire for multi-use field spaces. Also an ask for some more synthetic turf field space within Colwood and lit field space. So both of those really being able to extend field use and provide more usage during evenings like tonight. Of course, our process was also framed by the Latoria South Parks Plan. And you can see the expansion area noted here on the overall plan for Latoria South. The Latoria South Parks Plan also included a list of specific terms of reference for Quarry Park. So just as a refresher, many of those elements have been achieved by Phase 1, the Phase 1 plan, which is currently being implemented, with the exception of the playing field space. In addition to the terms of reference items, Phase 1 also integrates picnic lawn viewpoints, a pump track and bike skills park, and community plaza space. So really that left us the playing field space in Phase 2 that we knew we needed to provide, both because of the terms of reference and also just with the ongoing community demand. So as mentioned, concurrently, SD 62 is undertaking a parallel planning process for the elementary school site. So opportunities really exist for shared use of those facilities, as mentioned, and outside of school hours. This is a really preliminary site plan that was developed alongside the school district, just so we could show kind of the types and general arrangement of the facilities that could be anticipated on this site, and really kind of illustrate the planning context for the park a little more closely. So these elements definitely need to still be confirmed in future planning processes by the school district, but at this time they're looking at a new elementary school, which is the kind of main white rectangle you see there, item 1, as well as a new full-size grass playing field, field equipment and storage buildings to support that. Parking areas along Tradewinds Avenue and a pull-in off Corey Street, and then also playground, nature play, daycare, and outdoor play spaces for the daycare. And then item 10 on this is worth pointing out because right now it's kind of allocated as multi-purpose field or court space. So that's an element that will be continued to be fleshed out as this planning process continues, but potential for additional court space there, and that area you see could accommodate up to 2 courts. Just in terms of other key focus areas that really framed the concept plan design process, we did have a goal to create an inclusive and accessible plan for all. So key considerations that went into our concept plan included barrier-free paths of travel to all park amenities, accessible multi-use trails surrounding the park, universally accessible washroom and change room building, and then accessible parking considerations. So really thinking about providing spots that would have close access to some of the key destinations within the park and safe routes of travel from those spots. So shifting gears now a little to provide a summary of our engagement process, including what we heard from the community. The city pursued a broad outreach campaign to notify interest groups and the public about the process. The main opportunity for the community to speak with city staff and review the plan in person was the Ideas Fair in the spring at Royal Bay Secondary School, where we had displays that showed the draft plan, and city staff were on hand to chat with community members and hear their feedback. And then an input questionnaire was available really from the spring through the summer, hard copy and online. In terms of engagement response, we received about over 2,000 visits to the Let's Talk Colwood page during the engagement window. About 250 feedback form responses and 200 Ideas Fair attendees stopped by. In terms of kind of response to the draft plan, I'd say the concept plan was fairly well supported by the community. Most of the proposed park elements received support in general, and those that received the most support were the park washroom, change room, and maintenance building, community center, and the multi-use trail. Did want to highlight an area of flexible field space that was shown on the draft plan, kind of have a check. We understood that there was community support for field space based on our conversations with interest groups and from previous planning processes like the PRMP, but included a question about the community's preferences around a flexible field versus an other use. A flexible grass field space did receive support as compared to other uses. What was interesting in the response, though, is that many of the people who said they'd like to see another use, when asked to clarify what that use was, said playing field. So we were able to kind of have a general understanding of support for the field spaces. In terms of other park ideas that were shared, there were really a wide range of responses, but quite strong community support for a covered lacrosse box. Also, again, playing fields with soccer receiving the most support, and then followed by football and baseball as well. The third most commonly mentioned other park idea was a dog off leash area, as well as an outdoor pool or splash pad and tennis and pickleball courts. So bringing together kind of the key outcomes of the engagement phase, as well as our planning context overview, the project team in discussion with city staff identified the community center and playing field spaces as key priorities for Corey Park Phase 2 and the expansion area, just given the space available for them in Corey Park and the demand and strong community support received. There really isn't another park space presently within the city of Colwood that can accommodate multiple playing fields within the same location, which again was really identified as a community priority. Unfortunately, the trade-off there is that that means that some other uses either may not fit or may not be compatible with playing fields that are important recreational amenities. So I'd like to touch on those a bit further in the following slides. So as noted, really strong community support for lacrosse and specifically a covered lacrosse box. This was something we did explore in our draft concept plan process, just really based on early feedback from Juan Fuca lacrosse. There are a number of challenges, though, with integrating that facility in the Quarry Park, first of which being soil bearing capacity. A dry floor and significant covered roof structure has really different geotechnical considerations than a playing field. Um, and there really aren't areas within the concept plan that have adequate soil bearing capacity to support that are not already allocated for either the community center or engineered field use. Our understanding too is that demand is really more related to quality, so quality of the existing facilities rather than the number of facilities. So recognizing there may be opportunity to explore upgrading existing facilities rather than building new, which could be more cost effective. So recommendation is to explore opportunities for new or upgraded facilities in other locations within Colwood. Multi-sport courts again. So this is something that we did receive quite good community support for as part of this process. We also heard from the Langford Tennis Club, which is of course looking for a new home due to their arrangement changing at Royal Roads. Again, there are a number of kind of site planning considerations that we factored in when it came to placing courts and as we considered as part of the draft plan process, so including location, as well as coordination with the community center and noise and the residential context really being an important factor. We do recognize there's potential location to integrate multi-sport courts just south of where the community center is shown on the draft plan. So there's potential for those to either be integrated in a temporary way, kind of south of the community center, or to replace all or some component of the future build-out spaces. I think it's really worth noting, though, that in several communities across BC and in our parks planning experience, locating pickleball in close proximity to residential areas really results in quite a few noise complaints. So we reviewed Pickleball BC's suggested parameters for placing courts in residential areas. There are certain setbacks that would need to be met that really limit where we could place those courts within the park. And even likely to make it happen, you would need to pair with other kind of mitigation strategies like soil dampening, or excuse me, sound dampening panels or berms and whatnot. So again, suggestion is to sort of take a pause and evaluate if there are other locations for courts within the more general Royal Bay area that would be better than Quarry Park. And if Quarry Park is deemed the preferred location, then further design needed to address some of those sound concerns. Again, we recognize there really is demand for an off-leash dog park in Royal Bay as the community continues to grow and densify, so will the number of dogs. And I think, it was a really important point that was brought up in the Parks and Rec Committee meeting about really providing a dog park that is walking distance from all of the homes within Royal Bay, recognizing that there is a destination off-leash dog area being developed for Colwood Creek Park. Again, this item did receive fairly good community support in phase 2 and some mixed support in the phase 1 separate process. Some community members did really express concerns about conflicts with off-leash dogs within the park. And there really are a number of key challenges here. So the first of which being combination of location, size, and access. In the staff report, we included a look at whether we could potentially fit in a small off-leash area south of the community center. That was looking at a 600 meter squared parcel, which is really undersized when compared to typical sizes for off-leash dog areas, which would be well beyond that. And when we're looking at typical sizes, we're looking to other planning documents for other municipalities like the People Parks and Dogs Strategy developed by Vancouver Park Board. So in order to put a dog park in that location, it would absolutely need to be fully fenced due to the fact that it's surrounded by uses that are deemed non-compatible. So playing fields, playground, community center space. And what we've heard from Colwood through the PRMP and the Colwood Creek Park management plan process is there is not a desire for smaller fenced dog parks, since that can kind of exacerbate behavioral issues. So Again, we really feel there is a need, but it's warranted to take the time to undertake a separate planning study to see how can we evaluate alternative locations and provide a location that's really successful, both for dog owners and non-dog owners within the Latoria South area. Wanted to touch briefly on synthetic turf fields. So this item did receive quite a bit of community support, but some concerns from community members environmentally. So I think the reasons why it was supported both in the PRMP and as part of this process were the fact that synthetic turf fields can provide multi-purpose field spaces, obviously quite durable, require low maintenance, and really increase usability throughout the seasons and throughout the year with lower ongoing maintenance costs. Of course, some of the environmental considerations are related to migration of materials in environmentally sensitive areas. We recognize there have been advancements in synthetic turf design, which is great within recent years, that either fully omit some of the materials that are, it was typically the rubber infill that would be migrating, it would be causing environmental and health issues. So some new products eliminate that altogether or integrate organic materials instead. So that would be a consideration that should be thought of moving forward. So all of that to say, I'd like to introduce kind of the draft concept plan with all of that in mind as some background to our decision-making process. So the community center building, you can see on the upper east corner of the phase 2 and expansion area. The facilities plan for that was developed through an alternative process, but 2,000 square meter universally accessible facility with fitness center, offices, multi-purpose spaces for really a wide range of community programming. And then the build out areas you can see to the south, the larger parcel is potentially space for a future gymnasium, as well as future daycare space and outdoor play area for the daycare. The second community building component we're integrating is the new park washroom and change room and maintenance building. So that again would be a universally accessible facility. And then also thinking about potentially a large outdoor covered area for all seasons park use, kind of south of the plaza and the playground there, and as well for spectators. As mentioned, the flexible field spaces really can accommodate a number of uses, both recreationally and just sort of passive park recreation, but that is size for a full-size soccer field or smaller kind of rec field and 2 practice fields. And then the synthetic turf field is the darker green there, item 4 below. So that would be, again, full-size soccer field, fenced and with supporting buildings like equipment and storage and an accessible covered spectator area. And then again, connectivity improvements was another focus. So really trying to create welcoming park spaces that were providing barrier-free access to all through the park. So those are all of your item 5s where we would envision things like benches and planting and wayfinding signage and public art. And then number 6 is the multi-use trail. So continuation from phase 1 of the 3-meter trail around the park for accessible use for walking, jogging, cycling, rolling of all kinds. Outdoor seating not shown, but we'd imagine that would be provided at regular intervals along the park trails for folks with mobility challenges and just for general park enjoyment. And then parking area. So number 8 is enough parking for about 30 stalls placed in close proximity to the community center. For phase 2, there's also about 50 stalls and angled parking along Quarry Street. And then totaling for parking would be about close to 250 we anticipate with stalls in phase 1, as well as the elementary school site. So trying to find the balance of enough parking to meet usage while also kind of encouraging folks to maybe walk or take alternative transportation methods to the park. So final steps, revisions and finalization of the plan following this presentation, future planning processes as mentioned related to lacrosse and dog park and some of the court spaces and considerations for the community center, as well as just continuation of detailed design and plan implementation. So with that, I thank you for your time and welcome any questions or comments you might have.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. I'll open it up to council for questions. Councillor Jordison.
Thanks, Vanessa, for the for the presentation. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the with the Parks Committee recommendation that came forward. I appreciate staff looking into everything that they asked for and reporting back out. And I'd be happy to move this recommendation when the time's right. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the turf field. It's not something that I feel inclined to support simply because of the health implications and the environmental implications. We're very close to Cold Creek Park there, and the migration of those plastics that are used in turf fields can be really problematic, both for young players and also for um, older players. And it's just a real concern given um, my daughter played soccer for many years, and we certainly appreciated the balance that turf fields provided, that you weren't shut down for weather issues, etc. But there was a lot of health issues, and a number of players who were on her teams did suffer health issues, including cancers. So it's just a real concern for me, given that with proper management, more natural fields can also be maintained and work well. So with this recommendation going forward, is that a part of the recommendation, or is that still to be determined, the surfacing?
Through the mayor. All really valid points. So as proposed in the plan, it would be the synthetic turf field. As Vanessa mentioned in her presentation, there are alternatives to kind of the more traditional turf fields that you were speaking of with some environmental and health concerns. So there's new options such as cork, alternative materials, and staff would be moving towards incorporating those as opposed to the more traditional methods.
So tonight's recommendation is still subject to change, or is tonight's recommendation moving you towards turf?
Tonight's recommendation would be the plan as shown, so that would include the synthetic turf field is the term, but we would look into through the implementation and funding phase and detailed design, we'd be looking into alternative materials to be more environmentally and health conscious.
Your worship, if I may.
Please, Mr. Earl.
I think it's important for council to be aware relative to Councillor Day's question that should we proceed with our recommendation, that is the staff recommendation tonight, this still returns to council for a phasing and funding plan. And the specific components would need to be funded to be constructed. It's my expectation when that returns, there'll be options as described by the team. And should council at that time determined to move away from artificial, that would happen at that time, or could happen at that time.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm obviously a huge proponent of the Quarry Park expansion. I've been pretty vocal about that since the outset. In terms of the recommendation, though, I note that there's questions around sourcing an alternative space for a dog park in South Colwood or Royal Bay. And I mean, I think it doesn't take much to do an inventory in our head of existing land and what's there, you know, short of the beachlands and the last remaining areas that are undeveloped in Latoria South. The size of the open tract of land that we'd be talking about to meet the optimal needs here doesn't really exist. And I'm concerned we spend a significant amount of time and money on a study that's just going to, answer a question we're already kind of aware of. So I don't know if you've already looked at alternatives like Meadow Park and other areas, but as a resident of Royal Bay, I really don't see a lot of open space. So I'm kind of concerned that we're just kicking the ball, down the road a little bit here with, without much hope that we can kind of meet a community need that's been addressed. And then on the facilities piece, I support the turf field. I'll be very upfront about that. I think, having some familiarity with kids sports as a parent of two, I know that, well, and as an adult who's played a number of sports in these facilities, the usability factor is significantly greater than that of a grass field. So you get more bang for your buck. And as somebody who lives, very close proximity to the high school, I see the artificial field at Royal Bay with its lights being utilized, all of the time. It's a real gem. It's an asset to the community. So I see an opportunity for us with a second turf field as well as a multi-use grass field to create a destination. You can have children's soccer tournaments, adult soccer tournaments. There's other sports that can utilize that, but I question the weighting put towards sport use. Like soccer is a no-brainer. I'm not a soccer player, but I know the numbers, the enrollment numbers are significantly high. So I wonder if we've added any weighting into not just what the community is looking at, but what participation numbers and usage numbers look like. Like soccer, for example, has the highest enrollment of any children's sport in North America. Lacrosse isn't even in the top 10. And I'm not opposed to lacrosse. If there's lacrosse fans here, I'm sorry, I like the Shamrocks. But at the end of the day, the land use, for example, to create a covered lacrosse box, where is the value if it's such a niche sport that nobody else will use it? So I'm just wondering if we've added any weighting into, what the intended uses are versus the allocation of the land.
Through the mayor to Councillor Ward. Yes, thank you. We did do an extensive review as part of the previous Parks and Recreation Master Plan process. And then to kind of update that as part of this process, did have conversations with some of the key sports organizations to kind of understand further their demand and projected need in the coming years. So we do really understand that there is a need specifically for soccer, but for other sports as well. And so if we can accommodate some of that need here for soccer, as well as implement the multi-use field space that could, be potentially used even for youth softball or t-ball, or even more informally for rugby practice or whatever it may be, then that can potentially help other spaces where Colwood could potentially be integrating fields like future planning for Allendale to meet other sports needs as well. So I wouldn't say it was kind of a weighted exact process, but bringing together information from other related and past planning processes and then updating through conversations with user groups.
Through the mayor, I can just quickly speak to the dog park part of your first part of your question. There is the report says Royal Bay, but it would be the entirety of the Latoria South Royal Bay Beachlands area we would be looking into. So recognizing that as Royal Bay, the community itself is kind of, as you said, kind of getting close to being built out, especially with park space. We'd be looking at a greater area than just that.
Appreciate that. And I think just for clarification, I mean, I appreciate the report spells it out pretty clearly that, it's not optimal. And I guess my alternative take, or being a devil's advocate, is that what will occur is an optical. I mean, I see it, or optimal, sorry. What I see now is that the high school field is the de facto dog park, right? For residents. And my concern is that we choose not to build it because it's not optimal by the standards we've set here. But then the new multi kind of purpose turf field we put in Latoria South becomes a de facto dog park as well. So no criticism of it. I mean, the logic is sound. I can't see where it'll go. So I'm hoping that someone on staff sure can find a piece of land, because I do think we need it.
Yeah. Through the mayor, I think our intent, I mean, we haven't done the analysis yet, but if it is deemed that there's not an appropriate size in terms of best practices, then staff would come forward with alternative options to still provide that use, because as pointed out by Vanessa, it is a growing need and a desire for the community, so we would certainly come up with options to ensure that some level would be provided.
I just have a question. So I'm of the opinion, that, when you come back with the details and the budgets and all that, I hope data comes back with it, like, so I just feel that everyone's sort of taking a, just poking the tiger right now. Everyone wants their thing. But I hope we come back with data that backs up what we end up choosing. And so, my question actually is, we started talking as West Shore mayors about a sub-regional viewpoint of our recreation facilities, our sports fields, our tennis courts, our pickleball courts. So is that conversation happening with our staff right now with others, or are we not doing this at this point in time? I wonder if you can clarify that with me, Matt.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of outdoor field allocations and kind of analysis of what the need is, we're currently using the existing Parks and Recreation Master Plan. But for indoor sports and court spaces and things like that, staff are currently undertaking a needs analysis for our current and future needs over the next 20 years for indoor sports and recreation facilities. And at the same time, West Shore Park and Recreation staff are undertaking regional or at least West Shore wide analysis for the same thing. So we're hoping that those two projects will kind of give us a really good sense of our indoor need. And then our existing Parks and Recreation Master Plan will guide us for our outdoor need. So we'll cover both bases in terms of recreation and space allocations over the next 20 years.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear, or just clarify that, in fact, that conversation is happening then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Not seeing any other questions. Can I get a motion on the staff recommendation, please? Okay. Councillor Jordison, seconder, Councillor Ward, discussion? Seeing none, are any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimous. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, 8.2, the 2024 BC Active Transportation Grant Resolution. Is that Ian or is that Bavina? Okay. Oh, you got to push a button there. There we go. You're
Sorry.
good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you for your time today. I'll be speaking on the council endorsement to apply for funding of $500,000 from the provincial 2024 BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant application. The application requires a certified council resolution confirming financial support and municipal priority of the intended intersection safety improvement project at Souk Road and Aldine Ave. The project is intended to improve safety, accessibility of this intersection through the expansion of the crosswalk staging area, removal of the southbound channelized right turn lane onto Aldine Ave, enhanced curb ramp features at the Galloping Goose Trail crossing, and an interval signal timing to facilitate active transportation crossing. Resolution states that council endorse this grant application, which will provide up to 60% of the required funding and to be completed by March 31st, 2026. This grant application aligns with council's recommendation dated November 14th, 2023, that staff explore the use of similar design treatments as proposed for the Whale and Wilford intersection and at Galloping Goose crossings in Colwood, and that any intersection being updated would favor protected designs wherever possible. In terms of project funding requirements, the province will provide up to 60% or $500,000, whichever is less, of total eligible cost. The total estimated project cost is $893,700. So $500,000 is proposed to be covered by this grant, and $393,700 would be covered by the city. If council wishes to proceed, the city's share of funding would be secured through the gas tax and general operating surplus. The grant application has received letters of support from several third parties, including BC Transit, Colwood Fire Rescue, Rural Roads University, Capital Bike, and the Citizens Environment Network in Colwood. A certified council resolution is required by December 1st, 2024. Staff recommends that council make a resolution as stated in the staff report for submission as the final requirement. If the city proceeds with this application, staff expect to be in the position to update council on its success before the end of the second quarter of next year. Yeah, thank you. This concludes my introduction. Happy to take any questions. I'm joined by our Manager of Engineering, Joshua Bayless, and the Director of Community Planning, Ian Burrell, for any design-related questions.
Thanks very much, Lavina. Councillor Jensen, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for this. And a few questions come to mind. Where does this fit in with the future reconstruction of Souk Road with regard to the transit lane that is supposed to be going in there?
That is,
I'd hate to think we invest a bunch of money here and then it gets all ripped up a couple years later.
that's a good question. I'll bring up
Uh-oh.
John to talk
It's the big guns.
to that.
Sorry for the surprise, Your Worship. I know I'm not on the report list, but this is more of an overall transit question, I think, with regards to long-term planning. As council is aware, what we're currently doing on Souk Road is acquiring 30 meters of right-of-way with all the developments through there. So that 30-meter right-of-way still hasn't been determined with regards to what that cross-section looks like. But that cross-section would allow us, if we so choose as a community, to add a transit lane in both directions, if that was the choice. So that's probably not going to occur for a couple of decades. So although this work currently as it exists may be altered a couple of decades from now, it certainly will serve the community for many, many years to come before that would occur. There's a lot of land that has to be acquired through there. And currently there's not a project in the near future that's planned to work in that area. So that's about all I have.
Thanks, John. A couple other notes. We've had a lot of discussion about Souk Road over many years, and for all intents and purposes, it is a major thoroughfare. This looks to me like we're going to be creating potentially some interactions with the redesign for people slowing to turn right on a green light. That concerns me. I look at that, and again, with my arts degree, I believe that right-hand lay-by lane is far safer for traffic transiting onto Aldine.
I can't speak to whether it's safer for traffic, but I can speak to whether it's safer for pedestrians and cyclists. And it is recognized throughout the industry that those slip lanes definitely are a concern for cyclists and pedestrians with regards to that quick turning movement, not seeing that cyclist or pedestrian depending on where they're standing. So that movement does slow down traffic somewhat, which in the Souk corridor, I think we see speeds sometimes that are excessive. So it's not that detrimental with regards to speed or impact on the corridor. It is what I would call a compromise with regards to making that movement and then acquiring that safety piece. And that's why we think we'll be successful with regards to the grant application, because we are improving pedestrian cycling safety significantly with the removal of that slip lane.
Thank you. And I see they're sticking with the two-stage crosswalk. Again, you see on some situations for a crossing like this where perhaps it would go with just a
an angled crosswalk directly across and joining the trail, eliminating one whole crossing. As far as safety goes, if everybody's at a stop and that crossing is open for cyclists, that seems to me a safer option. I'm sure you have some stats to rebut this, but
I don't have any stats off the top of my head, but we did look at that, and that was our intent when we went down this path. We did look into that Victoria study that's referred to in the report, and it determined that that wasn't a good alternative. But we were so committed to it because it is an excellent solution on Whale Road, where we're using it on Whale, that we wanted to commit to it on Aldine and Souk as well. Problem is with Souk Road, the traffic volumes now are close to 30,000. They're going to get higher. And by the time you make that cross, you're looking at usually about a meter a second with regards to a crossing. So the length of that crossing, by the time you hit your yellows and your reds and so on in your various movements, it would be such a long interval with regards to the one process across that diagonal that the traffic impacts would be detrimental. And the other legs moving back towards Goldstream. So we felt that it was just too much of an impact with regards to vehicular corridor traffic to implement that. So we decided not to go that way.
is there crash data to support these changes? Sorry, I didn't see it in here, but
In this particular
yeah,
intersection,
have we identified a problem here? Because no one's sent me an email to tell me that they have concerns about this intersection.
I have not seen significant crash data in that area, but I'm not sure if it exists or not, but I haven't seen it.
So why this intersection and why now, when I can think of a half a dozen other ones where we might get a better value or
This was one of the intersections that was pointed out by the committee for staff to review. And that's the reason we chose it with regards to committee direction.
thank you. I'll yield.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dave?
Thank you. Don't go away, John, because my questions are related to the cyclist movements on Souk Road itself, because when we're looking at this intersection, there is affordable housing in close proximity, where it's still my hope that many of the people who live there will access their groceries and other daily needs at Colwood Corners, and will possibly do that by walking or biking. Biking makes a lot of sense, except for Souk Road. So I don't want to create an intersection that makes it less safe for people trying to access their daily needs. And when we tighten up these intersections and slow down traffic accordingly, we're not leaving any space for those cyclists who might try to navigate Souk Road. Currently, I see a lot of cyclists utilizing the sidewalk in that area. So I think it would make a lot of sense to have a dedicated, protected bike lane going around that corner as well. Because I see lots of cyclists crossing the road for the Galloping Goose there. But if you just wanted to go to the store and get your milk and eggs and get back home on your bike with your backpack or your trailer, whichever way you do it, that's a lot farther out of your way. So the simple solution is to use Souk Road, and I'm concerned for their safety, the way that intersection is laid out. Do you have plans for bike lane or protection there?
Not in the current visioned decision matrix. That ultimately the corridor treatments that we have looked at on Souk Road would have the potential, if that cross section was chosen, to have a protected bike lane and a pedestrian walkway in the long term. But in the short term, we don't have plans for any kind of protected work on Souk Road at this time.
And although there's not a lot of transit on Souk Road in that direction, I don't even know what that direction is, towards Machosen Road.
I would call it east, but
East, there you go.
it could be south. We usually use Souk as east-west.
I know, it's all mixed up here on this funny island. But anyways, going in the direction towards the Galloping Goose Trail, going towards Langford, there is a big chunk that used to be where the road was. The road, Soup Road itself was amended, just a little closer to where the private school is, not far from here, due to a number of deaths on Soup Road from access and egress. And the fact that there used to be a dip in the road, that's been straightened out. But there's a big chunk of pavement on the side of the road that's potentially very useful and certainly could be useful for bikes, for a bus pullout in the future, for all of those things. So I'm not a big fan of these tight 90-degree corners. I know they slow people down, but I can see that becoming a real rear ender location. But we could do it better and not make it quite so tight. So that would be what I'm looking to recommend would be something that pushes that corner back just enough that there's room for bikes to safely be in a protected lane at the corner prior to going around the corner.
Okay, I'll have our consultant and Joshua take a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't share those same concerns because the speed limit along there is 50 kilometers an hour. That was 50. And I'm sick and tired of getting the bird all the time because I'm doing 50 along there. So I don't have the same concerns, but I do have concerns. I mean, I have, I'm always, you know, how are we going to pay for it? And it's very clear what you said, gas tax and operating reserve. Up to, you know, for the quote there of 900 or 893,000, blah, blah, blah. So it's about, you know, the maximum we're going to get from a grant would be about 500 or so. And, but okay, so I'm going to give you the scenario. So what if they only give us 200? What happens then?
I think we'd be back, and I would suggest, as Councillor Jensen alluded to, before we came back, we'd be looking at all of our intersections and seeing whether that was value well spent or not. Because that dollar cents scenario to me starts to put into question whether that's the best location to spend that kind of money on that intersection, because we're not getting that ultimate treatment of the diagonal crossing. So we are compromising some things here, but we feel with the grant application that it's worth that compromise from a value perspective. But if that came less, then that would be something we definitely come back to council and then give you some choices to make.
Okay, so I do have one last question, and the last question I have is, we gave you direction. I know that. I remember the meeting that we told you to go look at this. Is that just from, again, a data point of view? Is that the one that we should be looking at from a safety point of view?
We don't really have a lot of stats from a safety perspective with regards to pedestrians and cyclists. You only get really we do have a few stats, but I couldn't tell you whether I thought this was, from a stat perspective, I haven't seen the data on whether this would be the best place to spend this money. We were under a bit of a time crunch with regards to submitting the grant. This was an intersection that we were specifically asked to review, so we did. So this is the reason why we're putting it in front of council today specifically.
Thanks, John. Councillor Jensen?
Sorry, just one follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, I'm in favor of seeking the grant, but am I backing myself into a corner if I don't think this is the right intersection? Or are we gonna see what we get and then assess from there and take a look around? And
what's great about these grants is you can always say no. So what I'm clearly hearing here, and I think we can spend a couple of dollars with our consultants to take a look at our intersections and have a quick look at that crash data and just ensure that this is one of the better intersections to do this work. And staff sees something that causes us to pause, we'll come back in front of council and give you some alternatives, which means it wouldn't be for grant funding, but it would give you the choice to not say yes to the grant when it comes forward. So you still have a chance to say no to this when we get there.
okay, so from what I'm hearing, this grant funding is for that intersection. That's it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ian, you have something to add?
Sure, Your Worship. I just wanted to add that we did have significant anecdotal data from both Royal Roads and our fire department about safety challenges at this location. that was one of the reasons why we got the letters of support from both of those organizations. We can certainly, as Mr. Rosenberg states, come back with some crash data before finalization.
That would be great. Thank you. Seeing other questions, can I get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Okay, Council Grove, Councilor Day. Are you seconding or? Oh, okay, you're the seconder now. Or you, is it to the, he's just moved the motion, so I'm just looking for a second of the motion. Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Day.
There we go. Now I'm working. I just want to propose an amendment to add consideration of a protected bike lane approaching the intersection on Soup Road.
Okay, can I get a seconder on that motion or that amendment? Okay, you good with that then? Okay, Councilor Jordison seconds it. Okay, and do you want to motivate then, Councilor?
Sure, I'll
Councilor Day?
just motivate. I know that there's a long way to go on our active transportation plan, but I just see that we have a bike lane at Colwood Corners in front of Thrifty Foods. We have a nice big sidewalk. And then when you get through that intersection from there to here, it's a little more difficult for cyclists on Soup Road. And so by putting in a protected area of bike lane at the intersection, you wouldn't have cars veering into the cycle space and potentially causing accidents with your cyclists who may be turning right at Aldine if they live in that area, or who may be going straight through.
Okay, do you want to motivate seconder on that? Yeah, please. Then I'll go to you.
I guess I just wanted to say that I think that if this is the intersection that's chosen, I think we should make it as safe as possible. That's, you know, I realize it is 50 zone, speed zone, whatever, but that is clearly not what people drive that stretch, so.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ward on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I admit I'm adverse to spending additional monies on this in terms of a bike lane and other treatments at this point, not because I'm opposed to them. I'm actually a big fan. But I think, you know, doing things in a patchwork way has been the Colwood way for a long time. I think I really would hesitate to put a Band-Aid on it. I would prefer to wait and see as development advances along that corridor that we build active transportation networks in accordance with a master transportation plan, and you know, in a significant way that creates a long lasting kind of project. For this intersection, for me, I think the elimination of a slip lane, there's mountains of evidence that support staff's recommendation that this is better for pedestrians and cyclists. That to me is a no-brainer. I would urge anyone to take a look at like strongtowns.org and other groups that have studied this extensively. It's a healthy recommendation if we go by the OCP and that streets are for people and we prioritize pedestrian safety, cyclist safety. A slip lane is designed to enhance vehicle speed over the benefits to pedestrians and cyclists. So from a philosophical standpoint, I guess individually you have to decide what's more important in this particular location. I think for me, I can get behind the staff recommendation. My only concern is just why this intersection now. I would like to see some data to understand, okay, do we have the pedestrian volume coming from east to west along Souk Road to justify removal of that slip lane at this time? I think it's generally a good idea. It's just that I think the volume of people coming there are going to be on the south side of the road coming from the Galloping Goose Trail, rejoining the Galloping Goose on the other side. And frankly, I'd rather see more efforts and any money we can find put towards our good friends at the CRD. You can twist their arm a little bit to pave the goose so that cyclists can more easily access the Colwood Corners and areas. Yes, you loop around the back of a few things, but the existing trail is there, it just needs to be paved. So if I'm gonna put any effort into anything, it's chirping in the ear of some people to CRD to do their fair share out here. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I am just speaking in terms of the amendment. I don't really support it because of that patchwork notion that's just mentioned a bit ago. I think that this representation is as safe as or safer than, much better than what is there now. I like the removal of the slip lanes altogether. I think I support the original plan as is, and I can't support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'll call the question on the amendment, please. All those in favor? Okay. And those opposed? So it's everybody else. You okay with that, Marcy? Thank you very much. Okay, going back to the original motion. I'm just going to add, a comment here before we vote on this. I guess I have the same problem. I'm generally up and down that street every day, and I feel the same way. We're about to pay, $500,000 for our almost $1 million on a consultant study, and then there's construction after that, and so I just, we talk about. And I'm not going to use the word, it's not frivolous spending, but let's look at our priorities. And I'm really afraid of how we're spending right now. I'm trying to get that under control. It's my only point I want to make here, and that's why I won't be able to support this this recommendation at this time. Even though we told you it's great, but until I see some data to prove this wrong, I just don't think it's worth the money. It's a lot of money, but that's my humble opinion. Anyways, at this point in time, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor of the recommendation? Councillor Grove? And all those opposed? That's the rest of us. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 8.3. Marcy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So staff are seeking council's approval to award the contract for the SharePoint design and the content management project to Spot Solutions. The need for a new records management solution became evident during the pandemic. A records consultant was retained in late 2023 to identify the issues with our current system and to look at alternative cloud-based solutions. The consultant identified several issues with our current system, including security concerns, decentralized repositories, and poor search functionality. So IT and corporate services are recommending transitioning to the Microsoft SharePoint with Purview for a cloud-based solution. This solution leverages existing Microsoft products and will allow for in-place records management. The RFP was issued and it closed on October 16th. The selection committee has unanimously chose Spot Solutions as they meet all the functional criteria, and they were the only proponent able to deliver the project as requested. Spot Solutions will develop a secure SharePoint online environment, migrating content from our existing record system and other sources. The initiative will provide a comprehensive records management solution with retention policies, sensitivity labels being applied to the content, and integrated with other M365 applications. So this initiative will enhance record security, improve our search capabilities, and support collaboration. The project was commenced utilizing previously approved records and software-related funding that was identified in the 2024-2028 financial plan. And we now have a records coordinator in place that will take the lead on this project. So we are seeking council's approval to award the contract. And we thank you for your consideration, and we're confident that this project will significantly improve our records and management capabilities. The manager of IT, Mark Downton, is also available should council have any more technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from council? Councilor Day.
Thanks, Marcy. That's a great report. I'm just wondering, the ongoing cost for using a cloud-based solution. Is it like all our other softwares that are going to be putting the thumb screws to us as soon as next year?
Yeah, through the mayor, thanks for that question. It'll actually be less. We already own this software. We're not purchasing anything. We're just gonna utilize a tool that's been there since we started using Office 365. So this contract really is paying for services and getting the configuration correct. And then once we're using it, we'll see about a $10,000 a year decrease in our annual support.
Great, that's good news. Thank you, because I certainly have found that the functionality of our existing system is super challenging. Thank you.
Finally, someone gives me good news. Councilor Jensen.
I was just gonna move the recommendation.
Okay,
Your
super,
worship.
thank you. Can I get a seconder, please? Okay. Councilor Jordison. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, 8.4. Subdivision and Development Servicing Bylaw 2000 amendment status. I think I have Aaron down. Haven't seen you in a while, Aaron. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here just tonight to give you a briefing on the status of the subdivision development servicing bylaw that we adopted back in March of this year. As part of that adoption, there was a sort of a condition set as part of the recommendation for staff to come back to the Active Transportation Committee as well as Council to reconsider the road cross sections that were adopted in the bylaw. The intent of that was to take any updates to the transportation master plan and apply those to the cross sections in the bylaw. Unfortunately, presently we're not far enough along in the creation of or update of the transportation master plan to use it as a guide to revise those cross sections. Instead, staff is proposing to take those cross sections and add them to the information package for the update to the transportation master plan and allow the public to have that information. And then staff can collect any input and feedback and then report back to the Active Transportation Network, Active Transportation Committee and Council. Yeah, and then staff would bring those any feedback to council for a amendment, as well as we have some minor housekeeping and revisions to make in the bylaw that would be included in that amendment. And that's all I have for
Okay,
tonight.
thank you very much. This is
thank
just
you.
for information.
And yes, it
only,
was for information.
folks. Any questions for Aaron? Oops, Councilor Day, sorry.
Thank you. I'd just like to request that whatever you're going to put out to the public, that council gets to see that first, please. That's been a source of some issues thus far in the transportation master planning update. So I just, I think I'd just like to see it before it goes out for public comment.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Aaron. I'm just gonna call a recess, just a wellness and health recess here for 5 minutes. And we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. 5. That's the joint OCP. Mari, over to you.
Thank you very much. And good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'll just wait for it to come up first. Okay, so this presentation is on the city-initiated joint OCP amendment and rezoning application for 3698 Machosen Road. This application is part of the larger city land swap process, which does involve a few other agenda items that are before you this evening, such as the Corey Park expansion that you discussed earlier and the rezoning of 499 Royal Bay Drive, which you will discuss later in the agenda. So just the site context, the subject property is 3698 Machosen Road. It is currently zoned AR1. It is designated as a neighborhood in the OCP and is 4.2 hectares or 10.4 acres in size. The property is bisected by Machosen Road, so there is a portion east and west of Machosen Road. And historically, the property has been utilized as a storage of materials, but the city no longer has a use for it. So the proposal before you this evening, staff has received direction from council through a number of resolutions to proceed with processing of these applications. So the proposal this evening is to amend the Latoria South sub-area plan to include the subject property and add as area 11, in addition to rezoning the property from AR1 to CD28 and add as area 11. In addition, the request is to also enable an additional 500 residential units to Latoria South. And then finally, to subdivide the property. So the portion on the east side of Machosen Road will be subdivided off of the west. And then the portion on the east side will remain in ownership of the city of Colwood. And the use of that land will be determined at a later date. And just generally, this proposal and inclusion of the lands will continue to support the growth and diversity of the Royal Bay neighborhood. So as I mentioned, this application is part of a larger process that we're titling the City Land Swap Process. So this is an exciting opportunity for the City of Colwood to achieve a number of its parks and recreation objectives. So the conditions and that are in the list before you are essentially the conditions for the city land swap process. So they include the transfer of lands from Gablecraft to the city of Colwood for the Corey Park expansion lands, the rezoning and enabling the additional 500 residential units of the subject property and the amendment to the Latoria South sub-area plan. A cash contribution to the city of Colwood of $2 million to go towards a community center. And then finally, the rezoning of 499 Royal Bay Drive to enable an additional 11 single-family homes and the subsequent expansion of Promenade Park. So getting into the OCP amendment, the Latoria South sub-area plan was originally adopted in 2020, and the subject property was never contemplated to be part of it. The sub-area plan is split into 3 areas. So the pink is the commons, the orange is the transition area, and the yellow is the quarry area. The original density within the sub-area plan was 2,100 units. However, at the sole discretion of the city of Colwood, the maximum number of units could be increased in the future based on periodic traffic studies. Now, the proposal before you is to enable an additional 500 units for all of Latoria South, and the appropriate updates to the traffic models and subsequent TIAs have been conducted and do show that our road network does have capacity to accommodate the additional 500 units with appropriate improvements to the network. In addition, of course, we're enabling an additional 500 units, and there is a density covenant that is registered on all the lands in Latoria South that essentially tracks the number of units. So there will be amendment to that covenant to enable the additional 500 units for all of Latoria South, not just area 11. So the proposal is to include area 11 within the transition area of the sub-area plan. This is to enable a variety of uses to maximize the best use of the land. We will enable a range of housing types and other institutional, commercial, and non-residential uses. And this is really just increasing the buildable area of Latoria South, and will be enabling heights of up to 6 stories and an FAR of 3.0. So getting into the rezoning, so we are proposing to rezone the subject property from AR1 to CD28 and add as Area 11. The existing CD28 zone includes all of the lands in Latoria South, and they're split into 10 areas. Each area has its own list of permitted uses and zoning regulations. Some examples of permitted uses for Area 11 include assembly and entertainment uses, bakery, brew house, hotel, and a range of housing forms. This is really just to create flexibility to allow realized development to be market driven at the time. And should units be built outside of Area 11, they will be subject to existing zoning regulations in those areas. So essentially what you're seeing being built in Royal Bay right now is what you will continue to see. This is just examples of what development could look like on Area 11. So these are all conceptual drawings in nature, but it does show a commercial focus, a townhouse focus, and an apartment focus. We will not know the exact type of development that will be proposed until the time of subdivision or development permit, excuse me. Next, getting into the Parks and Rec objective. So this is a really exciting part for the City of Colwood, and it is allowing us to achieve many of our objectives, starting with allowing Corey Park to be officially designated as a community park by meeting the size criteria for a community park. We are able to do this without having to partner with other organizations such as the school district or West Shore Parks and Rec, as we're able to acquire the land ourselves. We're also able to achieve many objectives, such as athletic fields, courts, a community center with the $2 million cash contribution, and inclusive play elements. And an update to the Latoria South Parks Plan will come before you once the programming for it has been finalized. So communications, a development notification sign was posted on the subject property. We did hold an open house at City Hall on October 23rd. 2 ads will be posted in the local newspaper, and staff are currently strategizing for the notifications in advance of the public hearing on December 11th. In the absence of Canada Post, it is making it a little bit more difficult. So we're currently just strategizing on how to get those notices out. We have been reaching out to other local community groups and organizations that could potentially deliver it for us. We've also considered putting a flyer in the Goldstream Gazette. So we're looking at options there. And finally, the staff recommendation this evening is that council, it says committee recommends council that 3698 Machosen Road is rezoned to CD28 and included within the Latoria South sub-area plan, and to enable an increase of 500 dwelling units, and it's subject to property remediation and offsite works. And the options this evening is the staff recommendation that council requests staff to provide additional information, that the application be denied, or that council provides another option for consideration. Thank you, and Ben and his team are here to present as well.
Okay, great. I just want to point out the committee that was written up. There was the Planning and Land Use Committee. If anyone wanted to watch the video, it was available. It was recommended unanimously by the Planning and Land Use Committee. Okay. Questions, Councillor Day?
Thank you. You mentioned the OCP, you mentioned traffic analysis. You didn't say anything about sewer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sewer wasn't part of this piece, but we are aware of the extra 500 units the current piping system within Latoria South is capable of handling this extra piece, but it was not part of this first determination. But we have looked at it on our sewer master plan, and it can be accommodated this time.
Within the existing infrastructure.
Correct. Now, there is a plan for our lift stations to be upgraded long-term in that sewer master plan. Our sewer piping system is fine.
I have major concerns about our sewer system, which is why I will be opposing this evening, because I feel that the city of Colwood may need this land for sewage treatment in the future. We have the original density for Royal Bay, including Royal Beach, was 2,800 homes when it was approved in 2001. Since then, there's been many amendments. It has tripled in size already, and we're adding another 500 units without capacity for treatment or conveyance to the sewage treatment plant. So for me, we were going to have some work that council was going to participate in on sewer infrastructure in Colwood. We were not able to achieve that prior to this evening. So unfortunately, I cannot just blindly support going ahead with things that may cost us a great deal in the future. So I cannot support this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion on this, on 8.5, please? Sorry. Oh, yeah, right, sorry. I can cancel you or?
No, I just had a question.
Oh, please go ahead, Councilor Ward, sorry.
Sorry, quick question. I'm not sure if Mari misstated, but is Ben presenting something before, or do you want to see a motion?
Okay.
I'd prefer to see the presentation from
Okay.
Cablecraft before we put a motion on the floor.
Sure, absolutely. Is it the same one that you presented at committee? Okay, sorry. I assumed everyone watched it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Paul Finsky. I'm a principal with Placemark Design. Tonight's presentation reflects the collaborative work between the city staff and Cablecraft that dates back almost 2 years now. And in 10 years on, as we can see by the cover photo, Royal Bay is indeed Colwood's waterfront community, a fruition of the master plan that I was fortunate enough to be involved and lead in 2014 that started the launch of this new neighborhood. Next slide. That's great. Thanks very much, Marty. Well, from this initial 2014 vision, Royal Bay has indeed grown into a busy neighborhood, bustling with mixed-use shops, a diversity of homes, schools, parks, commercial commons. And in fact, by your own numbers, Royal Bay is its fastest growing community. And today, once a gravel pit, is today now home, people call home to the dozens, if not hundreds of families. And it's that issue. How do we do more with Royal Bay? How do we bring more of what Royal Bay needs to grow? How do we bring more of what Colwood needs to grow to Royal Bay? And that's really the opportunity at hand with growing the Latoria South Division, Royal Bay's newest neighborhood. It continues, as you've heard tonight, to realize the Parks and Recreation Master Plan vision. But in addition to that, with new schools, there's also opportunities of completing the long-awaited Beach to Mountain Trail, connecting Colwood to its waterfront. And indeed, Colwood is part of a growing region, a changing region. And that's part of the challenge, is that planning and land use never stays still, although we'd often like it to. The growing population means that Colwood's population is projected to increase by 30% in the next 15 years, with much of that residential growth planned here in the south at Royal Bay and the beachlands. Currently, as you've heard, The main recreation facility used by Colwood residents is the one that you share as part of the West Shore. And that issue then is embedded within your update that you've heard tonight from your Parks and Recreation Master Plan, looking for more recreation, not only in the north, but specifically in the south, where you can see by the plan it is severely lacking. An opportunity to convert a neighborhood park to a community scale park, include outdoor sports courts, athletic fields, and a new community center. All of this to support ongoing growth needed within the Royal Bay area. Now, the Royal Bay area, again, as you've heard tonight, is a good fit for this type of expanded program. Building on its gentle topography, Royal Bay has an opportunity to accommodate these new civic uses and provide further benefit for all the residents, whether you're in Royal Bay or in Colwood in general. The opportunity to do more involves 3 parcels. The first of which you heard tonight, the 4.6 acre expansion of Quarry Park, moving it to approximately 16 acres and becoming really a community destination asset within Colwood, certainly the heart of Royal Bay. The second is the property that Mari just spoke of, owned by the city of Colwood. The portion of the lands that we're talking about on the north side of Machosen Road tally approximately 8.7 acres. Currently, the designation is rural residential. The proposal is to move it to mixed residential. The opportunity to include these lands, it's something that we had argued for back in 2014, given their availability to be included within a larger urban fabric, at that time was denied. However, 10 years later, this is a significant opportunity to bring further residential, commercial employment along a major arterial such as Machosen Road. The second property involved in this initiative is the remainder lands in Royal Bay adjacent to Promenade Park, currently owned by Gablecraft, approximately 5.5 acres in size. The current designation is townhouse. The proposal is to move half the property approximately into the expansion of Promenade Park and complete the remainder with 11 single-family homes scaled and in character matching their neighbors. To further provide an overview of some of the details of both the City Land Initiative as well as Gablecraft, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Barry Warren.
Thank you. I'm a planner with Placemark Design, and for the last 2 years, I've been working with Gablecraft as well as with staff at the City of Colwood on this question of how do we use the Latoria South lands to help achieve the Parks and Recreation Master Plan objectives while also resulting in benefits to Latoria South, making it a more complete and successful community within Royal Bay. So the first main parcel that deals with this is, of course, the Quarry Park expansion. And the plan up on screen, which I'd like to walk through to try and illustrate some of the benefits, is the drawing that was presented by Lanark, brought forward to public consultation back in April and July. And the big moves that you get with expanding this parcel by approximately 4.6 acres are the additional flat land that's needed for a full-size sports field, be it for soccer, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, being able to have the additional land to actually accommodate that sports field that supports not just casual play, but also tournament and structured league play. Having the additional space to build a new community center. So 2,000 square meters, that's about 22,000 square feet, and would have the ability for a new fitness center, multi-use space, and potentially even a daycare. It also provides, as was noted in the Lanark presentation, the opportunity to really open up this park, give it new frontage along Quarry Street, which it wouldn't have were those lands to be developed as townhomes, give it a more celebrated presence within the neighborhood, and make it more accessible both for pedestrian access as well as with new angled parking along Quarry Street. For the city lands, the 8.7 acre site owned by the city along Machosen Road, this drawing that's shown up on screen is just a concept. It's not a proposal, but this is to sort of illustrate what could be achieved with the proposed zoning. And this concept plan shows about 150 apartments in the gray buildings on the south end of the drawing or the bottom of the drawing, 5-story buildings, 75 townhomes with the yellow roof forms, and then about 30,000 square feet of commercial in the red roof forms on the right-hand side of the plan. One of the really intriguing things about the city lands from an urban design perspective is with their location along Machosen Road, the arterial street, and being included with a mixed use designation, you have the opportunity to separate the commercial area from the residential area in terms of vehicle traffic, and that's what's reflected in this plan. So the ability to keep vehicle traffic that's accessing the commercial space only accessing, entering and leaving the site off of Machosen Road, while the residence is accessed primarily from the north side from a cul-de-sac through Latoria South, while maintaining the pedestrian as well as cycling permeability and having emergency access through a bollard system, which the fire department could open up if they need to get through, but preventing vehicles from rat running through the neighborhood in order to access the commercial areas. So some of the things that this concept or any mixed use development on the site would achieve is bringing new shops and services to the neighborhood, providing potential office space or maybe even neighborhood healthcare space into the community. The new housing that comes along with the rezoning, so 500 new homes to help not only address housing need, but also provide new residents to help support the commercial businesses potentially on this site, as well as at the Royal Commons where the Quality Foods is, and also providing new development cost charge revenue for the city on each of those homes. In addition to that new revenue, having the new commercial in the city lands mixed use helps further diversify Colwood's tax base by providing new commercial or potentially even light industrial taxation revenue. The third plan I'd like to walk through, in contrast to the other two, isn't a concept. This actually is the proposal that's reflected in the rezoning application, which you'll hear more on from staff tonight. This is the 499 Royal Bay Drive plan, and the proposal is for the 5.5 acre site to dedicate 2.26 acres of it to expand Promenade Park and formalize the existing trail system on the site, to establish 11 new single-family homes in contrast to the townhomes that are permitted under the current zoning. We did an open house in this very room about a month ago on this Latoria South and 499 rezoning proposal, and one primary theme that we heard from people in the community was if the site is to be developed, they prefer to see it as single-family homes that maintain the existing character rather than as townhomes permitted under the current zoning. In addition to the forest space that's preserved by dedicating the Promenade Park expansion, the proposal also provides about 0.4 acres of retained forest buffer in the form of a preserved no disturbance covenant between the new and existing homes. So essentially what this land swap comes down to, and as Mari spoke to, is the result of a negotiated purchase and sale agreement that involved a series of independent appraisals, the results of which are Gablecraft provides the land for the Quarry Park expansion, about 4.6 acres. They dedicate approximately 2.26 acres up on Promenade or up on Royal Bay Drive for the Promenade Park expansion. And they provide a $2 million contribution to the city, which can be used at the city's discretion, potentially for the new community center site. The city contributes the 8.7 acres of land on the 3698 Machosen Road site to Gablecraft to be included within the Latoria South sub-area plan. The steps for moving forward and realizing this vision of a more complete Latoria South include the technical amendments, rezoning, and OCP updates, which are being considered first tonight, a public hearing for the Latoria South rezoning and OCP amendment scheduled for December 11th, and then ongoing public input on the Gablecraft Lands 499 rezoning drive proposal. Thank you for the opportunity to present. We are here to answer questions as required.
Questions, Council? Skip. Okay. Council Ward moves the recommendation, seconded by Council Grove. And Council Ward, if you want to add anything to that?
take a very short time to motivate. I think it's rare at this table that you run across a true win-win. Oftentimes, you know, you're giving up something to get something, and you know, 50% of the people in the crowd or at home or on social media or wherever they are going to be unhappy with it. But you know, this is a rare opportunity where we can do what's best for the 22,000 people in Colwood. We provide significant park space, recreational opportunity. You know, we preserve the character of an existing neighborhood. So, you know, I want to thank the proponents, Gablecraft, Ben and his team, for, you know, recognizing what the community looked for. They could have easily just sold this property. They could have developed on this property, but they chose to engage with the community. I know the Royal Bay Homeowners Association is represented here, and you know, they have had a contentious relationship with Gablecraft in the past, but in recent times, you know, have been able to come together and you know, find a way forward. And so I commend all parties for doing so here, and finding a solution that preserves a significant amount of mature forest area up in the Royal Bay area, allows what isn't a park to become a park. There was a public perception for many people that, you know, the area adjacent to Promenade was a park, and it was private land, and private landowner can, you know, do within reason what they wish with it. But now we'll see that preserved for generations to come. And then the expansion opportunity in Quarry Park, like I said, is priceless. It's not very often that a city gets the opportunity to develop, you know, greenfield, you know, a brand new park with amenities like the pump track and bike park and fields, and a community center that can offer a myriad of services. So I'm really happy about this. I understand Councillor Day's concern on those other lands. You know, I'd heard proposals in the past of gondola base and all sorts of things, but you know, at the end of the day, I think we get fair market value, and staff, I think, have done an exceptional job negotiating on this. They've brought in outside experts to make sure that we got, you know, fair value for our dollar. So I commend them as well. And I think this is truly, I would say, win-win-win, in that we've had representation from the community. We've had staff really come to the table and work hard on this. And we've had Gablecraft as a true partner come forward and work with the community. So I'm ecstatic to support this. I think this is a legacy defining opportunity for this council and for the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Well, there are some residents who don't feel that they've won with this scenario, who are very concerned, and I share their concerns about the cul-de-sac entrance right at the entrance to Royal Bay. I live on a cul-de-sac with 7 homes on it, and you wouldn't think there's very much traffic for 7 houses off of a cul-de-sac, off of a dead-end road where I live, but there are conflicts that do occur, and that cul-de-sac, whatever conflicts may occur there, will affect everyone who's entering that entire neighborhood. So there was a presentation, and I understand it was made to the Planning and Land Use Committee as well, by an affected resident, suggesting that 2 entrances would be better than 1. There's a super mailbox, there's some line of sight issues. I do think that the sewer, it's easy to think that it's a win if you don't think about what it's going to cost you. It may cost quite a bit to service 500 more homes there. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that. But I think that it's important to maintain the character of the community. So I am very pleased that Gablecraft came to the table and was willing to look at something that the community could accept that wasn't townhouses. I do really appreciate that. I think the community appreciates that effort. But there's one home in particular that's very much affected by that roadway. And the designations changing in Royal Bay make it difficult for it to be the same as the other houses that were built around the same time it was. So I think that all in all, although there's definitely some wins here, there's a lot that we're not discussing that is a potential big downside in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Jordison.
I just had some questions about 499, and I just didn't know if this is the appropriate time to ask those questions or to wait until 7.5 comes forward. Okay, because it's, I mean, I can,
We can do it right now.
okay, yeah.
So, if I may, Kelsey does have a presentation for 499 Royal Bay Drive, if you'd like to hear that prior to questions.
Sure, no problem, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ward, again, second.
Yeah, sorry, and perhaps better suited for 499 since that was in discussion, but I just wanted to respond to Councillor Day and just say that I understand we received a letter from a homeowner and there's a couple of homeowners that are affected there, but 22,000 minus 2 or 4 or 5 is still a fairly small number. And, it's not that I dismiss their concerns. I understand it's frustrating when a road goes in next to you. This is a small cul-de-sac that would come in off an intersection that will service 5 homes. Statistically speaking, a single family home does 1 vehicle trip per peak hour. That's 5 trips peak hour. There's 2 peak hours during a day. That's 10 vehicles coming in and out of there. It's relatively insignificant, almost non-existent in the traffic planning model. Years ago, before this council, a decision was made to sever Royal Bay Drive going down into the new portion of Royal Bay to effectively eliminate through traffic there. So with the newer section, or sorry, the older section of Royal Bay, Upper Royal Bay, I'll call it, essentially achieving build out stage with these last homes, it's reasonable to expect you will not see a significant increase in traffic volume in that neighborhood for decades. There would be no reason something significant would have to change. You'd have to have some kind of higher government intervention to build massive condo towers or something. So when we talk about the value we get for the 22,000 residents of Colwood versus the unfortunate, I don't want to dismiss it, but the unfortunate change that will impact 3 to 4 homeowners, it's an imbalance that, I can't line up with turning down this opportunity based on that. So I'm sympathetic to their concerns, but 10 vehicle trips a day at peak hour is not something I view as a safety concern. And the analytical side of me that makes data-driven decisions looks at that and says, no, this is, I get it's upsetting, but I can't make a decision based on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. This land swap, which has occurred, which is in some ways quite complicated, as there's so many different elements to look at all in the one deal. But I think that the community showed a lot of goodwill on all parts to come together and allow this to happen. I'm thinking and myself looking over all of the different elements that will come to light with the expansion of the Quarry Park, giving space for the community center is one that particularly appeals to me. There's incredible demand for space for all of the many, many things that could happen in that facility. And I can see that our biggest problem is the worn out floors, because that place is going to be busy. And I think this is a wonderful plan. I support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I did just want to say one thing. I think it's important to recognize that this site was originally zoned for a school to be placed there. And I think what's happening in lieu of the school is, it's giving other people an opportunity to move into this neighborhood with just 11 more homes. I just think it's the best solution for everybody, for this school not to go there, and it's less disruptive and that sort of thing. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Who was the mover and seconder again, please? Grove? It was your Grove. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, Councillor Day opposes. Okay, we'll move on to the next one, which was 7.5 and it is now 8.6. Kelsey.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So agenda item 8.6 is a text amendment to the RBCD1 zone for 499 Royal Bay Drive. This application runs concurrently with the rezoning for 3698 Machosen Road to facilitate the city land swap process. Tonight is focused on the formal rezoning process to allow a reallocation of density for 11 new single-family lots. The property is 2.2 hectares or 5.5 acres in size and is currently an undeveloped forested site. The property is zoned RBCD1 and is considered the first phase of the Royal Bay development. The surrounding area is substantially built out with the exception of 499 Royal Bay Drive. The lot abuts Promenade Park and was originally identified as an elementary school site, but has since been released by SD 62. The RBCD1 zone included regulations for the intended school site. Those regulations are being removed as part of this amending bylaw. So the applicant is proposing a text amendment to the RBCD1 zone to increase the permitted detached residential unit count from 119 to 130. This would enable an 11-lot single-family subdivision. The proposal also reduces the permitted attached housing unit count from 103 to 96, because there's currently 7 attached housing units permitted in the zone today. So this overall results in a net increase of 4 units. The proposal also includes the expansion of Promenade Park by 0.915 hectares or 2.2 acres. A detailed review of the subdivision in accordance with the regulations of the RBCD1 zone and adjacent lots will be conducted when an application is submitted. So the property is designated as neighborhood in the OCP. The neighborhood designation supports ground-oriented detached single-family homes up to 3 stories. The designation is also expected to maintain the character and scale of existing residential areas while increasing housing diversity. Other policies include improving the public realm for pedestrians and creating direct walking connections through residential areas. The new single-family lots will be required to meet the regulations of the RBCD1 zone, including the setbacks, FAR, height, etc. So Promenade Park is designated as a neighborhood park in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, which responds to localized outdoor recreational needs of nearby residents. Colwood has a below-average neighborhood parkland area to population ratio. To meet the recommended 0.5 hectares to 1,000 resident ratio, Colwood needs to increase neighborhood parkland by 7.8 hectares before 2038. And this application is proposing an increase of 0.915 hectares. This application also facilitates the almost 2-hectare expansion of Quarry Park, which achieves multiple goals of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. So a breakdown of the type of green space is provided above. The applicant will formally dedicate the 0.915 hectares of parkland, which is 41% of the site, and a future walkway connecting the new road to Portwell Place. An 8-meter wide tree preservation covenant over private property has also been proposed, totaling just over 1,600 square meters. This covenant will restrict tree removal to ensure a buffer between existing dwellings and the proposed new subdivision. So the financial considerations for this application are included in the city land swap process outlined by Marcy earlier. This includes the rezoning of 3698 Machosen and expansion of Quarry and Promenade Park, and a financial contribution to the future community center. The applicant will also be responsible for obtaining a tree management permit in accordance with the urban forest bylaw prior to any sort of site preparation. As part of any single-family lot subdivision, applicable CAC and DCC fees will also be collected. The applicant will also be responsible for any off-site upgrades, including changes to the proposed intersection that will be approved by the city's engineering department when an application is submitted. So development notification signs have been posted on site, one facing Royal Bay Drive, one on Portwell, and one on Promenade Crescent. Notice of first and second reading of the amending bylaw has been uploaded on the website and been advertised in 2 newspaper ads. Postcard notifications were also sent prior to the Canada Post strike, but delivery may have been impacted. So notifications have been satisfied for the requirements of the Local Government Act. The applicant has also hosted 2 open house engagements, and the summary is included in that staff report. So for the staff recommendation, staff recommend the amending bylaws be considered for readings, subject to the conditions outlined in the development agreement, including the registration of that Section 219 tree protection covenant, the formal registration of parkland dedication, and some form and character considerations as part of that future 11-lot single-family subdivision. So other options council may wish to consider is requesting staff provide additional information, the application be denied, or another option outlined by council here. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So is Marcy and the applicant as well.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. Counselor Day.
Thank you. Kelsey, I am just working from the letter that was sent in by the neighboring resident. And the question that she asked, which I don't have an answer to, is you are recommending removal of section 10.1.6 bracket 5 in its entirety. And the resident wanted to know why this section is being removed.
I thank you so much for the question. I understand that 10.1.65 is the school regulations. So it is just a housekeeping amendment to just remove it so it's much easier to read as part of the zone. It's not a requirement anymore. So at the time of we open up a zone, we try to make it the best that it can be. So that's why it's being removed.
For sure. So it is just removing the school provisions that were there.
That section specifically is removing the school sections.
Thank you. And you also said in your presentation that the setbacks will be the same as the houses that are already in Royal Bay. So the side yard setback where the cul-de-sac comes in off Royal Bay Drive, will that be 0.6 or 0.3? Because when they were developed, it was 0.6 and now they are 0.3 meters.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the setbacks will remain the same. We did amend the flanking street setback, and the purpose of that is to ensure that when they come forward for a subdivision application, we would never approve a subdivision application that would make existing properties non-conforming. So that flanking street setback is 6 meters, and the existing homes have a 3-meter side yard setback. So we would never be they would never be able to meet that 6-meter setback. So we discovered that preliminarily, proactively now. So we made that amendment to the zone at the time of detailed review of the subdivision. That's when we conduct an analysis of how the subdivision would impact adjacent properties. And at that time, we would review the tools that we would have. So that could potentially have been a zoning amendment or a DVP.
So I'm trying to figure out how close is the road going to be to the existing home?
So this evening is just the text amendment to the RBCD1 zone. It's not the subdivision, so we don't have that answer right now.
Okay, I think the residents would, and I certainly would feel a lot better if we knew that the road wasn't going to be put right beside the house, because that makes noise issues for people.
John, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We haven't seen the actual cross section yet, but that right of way is 18 meters. It'll be 2 single lanes with a sidewalk. My guess is, and I think Ben can confirm this, is the sidewalk is going to go on the opposite side of the house. So it would be roughly 5 meters from the curb to their property line for the road, and then their house setback is 3 meters. So traveled portion of the road would be approximately 8 meters from the home. 25
Thank
feet.
you. Those are important things to know.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John. Counselor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very in support of this subdivision and everything, but I did want to point out that I think from the beginning, we've missed the mark on notifying the adjacent neighbors and ensuring that they were notified properly. And I think that we need to think about that going forward with other projects, because, you know, and not even just the postal strike, but in the past, they weren't notified properly, and it's only a few homes, so it could have potentially been hand delivered, and I just think it's really important to think about that in future. So, but thank you.
Counselor Ward.
Well, I think I've been very clear that I support this. I, can't help but notice that, there's the home in question, or the individuals that have raised concerns, are directly impacted. They're adjacent to the roads that would come in, and I'm sympathetic to that. I really am. I get that. But we can't lose sight of the fact that, we're making a decision for the larger community and not the whole community of Colwood, 22,000 people, but Royal Bay. I'm a resident of Royal Bay. I know and see many residents of Royal Bay, Upper Royal Bay in the crowd there. And while they don't represent everybody there, they certainly represent a large cross-section of the community. And I know there's a high level of awareness of this property in Upper Royal Bay. This is not coming as a surprise. This isn't a development application that, was hidden, the sign was missed. This is a property that is valued greatly by the community. Residents in Lower Royal Bay, myself, walk through there regularly, and folks that live up there are through there regularly. So people are aware. And unfortunately, what we have here is a case where the individual or individuals most directly affected are looking for ways to change it. And I guess what I would say to them is, we can do what we can in terms of the buffer and things to make sure that the impact is less. But regardless, somebody was going to be affected. I know there's a resident out there who lives on the cul-de-sac around the corner. And one of their proposals from these folks was, we'll put the road in that way. Okay, and so that solves your problem. But what about the 4 residents who live on the cul-de-sac? I would guarantee they would come forward and say, okay, our quality of life is negatively impacted. We live on a cul-de-sac. The kids are playing in there. Now you want to put a road in there? So there is always going to be someone who, unfortunately, ends up on the side of this doesn't work for me. But in this case, it's a couple voices, against weighing the greater benefit for the community. And I took offense to some of the commentary, frankly, in the letter that, that council is just rubber stamping what staff have put forward. Well, I would argue, and I would say this to their face if they're here, that, we directed staff to come up with a plan. We directed staff to negotiate with Gablecraft. They followed what we asked them. They arrived at the table with what I believe is a good deal. I was, again, offended by the notion and actually the written commentary that we didn't extract proper value here, that there could be more, that staff should have done more, we should have got better. There's a lot of insinuations in that letter that frankly I find offensive. So I understand they're emotional, they're upset. I've been there. One of the reasons I ran for council. But at the end of the day, experience teaches you a lot of things. And I think staff have done a very commendable job following our direction on this, and I support it 100%. I know the majority of the community supports it, and it's the right decision for Upper Royal Bay, for all of Royal Bay and all of Colwood. So it has my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion, please, and a seconder? Okay, thank you, Councillor Jensen and Councillor Jordison. Discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Okay, we get the bylaws. Bylaw number 2043 Pendray House Heritage Designation, first and second reading. Do you want to add anything at this point in time? Do we have a representative from the Heritage Commission?
Thank you, Worship. So I think the staff report is rather self-explanatory and the bylaw is pretty straightforward. We did receive a unanimous support at the Heritage Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Day, sorry. I'll come back to you, Councillor Jensen.
Sorry, no, I just was trying to move it.
Oh, okay, Councillor Jensen moves it. Councillor Day seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, unanimous, motion carries. Thank you very much. Bylaw number 1700-13, Colwood OCP bylaw number 1700-13, 3698 Machosen Road, city lands. I think we flogged this one to death. First and second reading. May I get a motion, please? Councillor Jensen, second by Councillor Ward. Discussion? Any further discussion? Thank you, Councillor Day.
Sorry, just wanted to make clear for the record, the reason that I'm opposing this is that we haven't considered the sewer uses or how they'll be dealt with.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Day opposes, please. Motion carries. 9.3, a bylaw number 2036, land use bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 215, 3698 Machosen Road, first and second reading. Get a motion, please. Okay, Councillor Grove and Councillor Jordison. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Day. Thank you. Motion carries. 9.4, bylaw number 2035, land use bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 214, RBCD1 zone 499, Royal Bay Drive, first and second reading. Motion, thank you. Councillor Ward and Councillor Grove. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No opposition. Okay, motion carries. 9.5, bylaw number 2041, Colwood Land Use Application Procedures, bylaw number 427, 1998, amendment number 4, notification distance, first, second, and third reading. This is where we're going from 75 to 100 meters. Okay, Councillor Ward and Councillor Jordison, discussion. Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Gotcha. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. 9.6. How about you read them, Marcy, from there on?
Sure, your worship. So we've got sewer local area service enlargement amendment bylaws for first, second, and third readings. 2046 for 3347 St. Troy. 2047 for 3347 St. Troy for Main and West. Bylaw number 2044 for Colwood, Maine, LAS enlargement for 506 Perks Road, and bylaw number 2045 Colwood West Sewer, LAS enlargement 506 Perks Road.
And we can do them all together, correct? Okay. Councillor Olson and Councillor Grove. Discussion. Any opposed? Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I believe we're reaching the point where we probably are going to have to start talking about whether or not we add people to sewer or consider if they should correct their septic system instead, because we are going to reach a point with 500 more homes that we can't treat all that sewage.
Noted. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Day. Motion carries. And go ahead.
Sorry, last bylaw is bylaw number 2039. It's the land use bylaw 1989 amendment, 2016, 2024 omnibus amendments, and it's for adoption.
Motion, please. Councillor Grove, Councillor Olson, seconds. Discussion. It's pretty straightforward. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Motion for adjournment, please. Thank you, Councillor Day and Councillor Olson. Thank you very much.